this program today, and we'll be letting people in as they knock on the door here. Good morning, I'm Liz Hartman, the Executive Director of the Lake Oswego Chamber of Commerce, and we want to welcome you all to a special Friday program from the Chamber. We've invited Chamber members from Clackamas County to join us this morning. I don't see anyone on here yet, but I think we may see them later. As you have questions, just put them in the chat, and Anna will address them when she completes the program. We do want to take the opportunity to let you know about a resource available to our Clackamas County businesses that's available through the end of the month, the Business Recovery Center. And Westland and Lake Oswego have joined together to put that together. We're going to just show it to you for a moment. The designated offices will be going through December 30th. Finally, the Lake Oswego and the Canby and the Wilsonville chambers all have PPE. We can take your orders through December 30th. And today's program will be recorded and posted with a link on the Lake Oswego Chamber website and on the Chamber YouTube channel for your reference or to share with other businesses. Now, most of you have heard of the United States Small Business Administration, but probably have not thought you had a reason to look it up until COVID hit. So Anna Shapiro is an economic development specialist and is dedicated to optimizing the contribution that SBA's capital, contracting, and small business counseling services can help your business with productive capacity, vitality, and economic well-being. We all know the health of our businesses affects our communities and citizens. Anna works to build and maintain collaborative alliances and partnerships with resource partners, economic development organizations, small business owners, and other interested stakeholders. So she's here to talk to you today about how you and your business can work through the Small Business Administration to create a successful business plan or to make changes that will expand your business or help train your teams through these coming months. And Anna, thank you so much for joining us virtually. I know this is not the perfect way to do this, but we are looking forward to hear what resources the SBA can provide.
Absolutely. And should I go ahead and share my screen now?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right, can everybody see my screen? Perfect. Well, thank you, Liz, for that introduction. I really wanted to come up with something witty to say at the beginning of my presentation. Instead, I think it's appropriate to say that thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope that everybody is healthy. I hope that your families are healthy. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that despite everything and all the craziness that's happening now, we are so fortunate to be living in the United States. So I encourage that everybody just take a minute to reflect on that point. It doesn't always seem that way, obviously, with, like I said, everything that's happening, but I think we all have a lot to be grateful for. And hopefully this presentation will help either remind you or inform you about the resources that are available to your businesses, to your business. So I'll go ahead and kick off the presentation. The objective of the presentation is twofold. I want to spend a little bit of time going over the SBA COVID resources that are available and that may be coming down the pipeline, and then talk about some of the standard SBA services that we offer year-round, but I think that are still very relevant to businesses as you all try to navigate COVID and figure out what's next for your business. So SBA is a federal agency. There are district offices in every state, and the mission of the SBA is to help small businesses grow, expand, and recover. Clearly, a lot of you are probably in that latter category, recovering. So let me go ahead. Okay, COVID. I want to talk about what type of recovery options are available. So most of you know that come March, we introduced the economic injury disaster loan. That loan program is set to expire on December 31st. The way that it was designed is that you apply, it's a very streamlined application. Apply, you have the option to be considered for an EIDL grant. For anybody who applied late, you know that that grant portion expired. So right now they're only issuing the economic injury disaster loans without the grant option. However, with this new stimulus bill, it sounds like they want to reinstate the grant portion of the EIDL program. What does that mean for you? 12/31 is a pretty close deadline. So if you haven't applied for the economic injury disaster loan and you think you may need the money, I would encourage that you apply, because it does not commit you to anything. Rather, you can be considered for that economic injury disaster loan grant if that does pass with the stimulus bill. So at most, that grant is determined by number of employee. If you're one employee, then you can get at most $1,000 in grant money for your business that you will not have to repay. If you have 2, 3, 5 employees, you'll be considered for that amount of grant money. And then 2, when you apply for the EIDL, like I said, it doesn't commit you to anything. So the SBA is going to review your application. They'll come back with an offer, a loan offer that they think is appropriate based on your situation. And at that point, you can decide if you want to take the loan or if you don't. But like I said, you can still keep that EIDL grant money to count toward your business without having to repay the grant money. The deadline is coming up. It's 12/31. I want to repeat that. That's the end of this month. I don't know. I didn't see anything in the bill to suggest that they're going to be extending the EIDL deadline, but it's a possibility. However, because it is a relatively short application, if you have not applied and you're thinking about applying, then now would be a good time to do it. Just to cover your bases, you'll notice on my slide, I have EIDL fraud, identity theft phone number. If you've been following the news, that has been an issue, and unfortunately it has been an issue in Oregon as well. But I want to note that the Office of Disaster Assistance is working hard with Office of Inspector General to make sure that anyone who was part of an EIDL fraud scheme, and namely that somebody taking your social security number, applying for the loan, and actually getting the loan dispersed. So people are waking up, it's not rampant, but it is happening, where you wake up, you get a bill of payment coupons for a loan that you never took. It's incredibly frustrating, but there is a silver lining in that the Office of Disaster Assistance, which is the SBA arm administrating the EIDL program, is working to ensure that anyone who's part of an EIDL scheme that will be reviewed, and you will not be responsible for that loan. It won't impact your credit, etc. But just know, so if you are part of that, we've had a couple of calls at the Portland District Office from businesses who were unfortunately affected by identity theft. But like I said, there is a path out of that situation. So that's where we stand with the EIDL program. The second program that SBA put out was the Payment Protection Program. This new stimulus bill, it sounds like that it ended. It's closed. The program ended in August of this year. Excuse me. But with this new stimulus bill, they are planning to reinstate the PPP program. For those of you who went through the process the first time, you know that you need to work with an authorized PPP lender. For those of you who are considering a PPP loan this second go around, or if you're applying for a second PPP loan, I would strongly encourage that you reach out to your small business banker and ask them if they plan to participate in the PPP program. If not, then you can go onto the SBA.gov website. If you go into the section on COVID, and I'm happy to send links afterwards, there is a search function where you can search all of the PPP lenders in the state of Oregon. Now, in addition to traditional lenders, there are fintech companies that are participating in the PPP program. And by fintech, I mean Cabbage, PayPal, and the likes. An air of caution, I would say if you have the option to work with a local PPP lender, do that. Just because the line of communication is going to be shorter, you're going to have more chances to connect with a real person and talk about questions pertaining to the application, loan disbursement, etc. We've had in the first round of PPP, a number of people reach out specifically about the fintech companies not being responsive, not being able to talk to anybody. There are definitely a number of businesses that had success with the fintech companies. But if it were up to me, I would certainly advise that try to work with a local lender, and then if not, then you can look into that option of working with the fintech companies on the PPP. Like I said, it's not to discredit them. There's been a number of businesses that had great success with the fintech companies, my parents' business in New York included. But for the options already mentioned, it's prudent to start with your local business lender and then work from there. Another upshot or good news on this new stimulus bill currently, if you took out a PPP loan and you took out an EIDL, you received the EIDL grant, you would not be forgiven that grant amount. So you took out $40K in PPP and you received, say, $3,000 in the EIDL grant money. If your entire loan sum was forgiven, you would still be responsible for that EIDL grant. That's where the regulations currently stand. The good news is with this new bill, they're going to wipe that bullet point away. So you will not be responsible. You will get the full loan. If you're eligible, you will get that full loan amount, PPP loan amount, forgiven without having to pay back the EIDL grant money. That was, rightly so, a huge point of frustration for a lot of businesses. So we're all very happy that they worked that into this new stimulus bill. Let's see. PPP forgiveness appeals. So applying for forgiveness, that application process, another point, is going to be a lot easier. They already made it pretty easy for companies that secured less than $150,000. They're thinking about, it looks like they're going to be revising that forgiveness form even more. I don't have insight on what that's going to look like, but it's in the bill. For businesses that already applied for forgiveness, there have been a couple of situations where the lender determined that the business is not eligible for full forgiveness, and they automatically call us and ask to appeal the decision. You cannot appeal the lender's decision until that forgiveness application is processed by the SBA. And then if the SBA agrees with the decision, there's an opportunity for the business to appeal the SBA decision. But I suspect that there may be changes around that process as well. Not entirely sure what, but if anyone's been following, you know that the regulations are changing constantly. Hopefully to the benefit of the business always, but like I said, until they pass that stimulus bill, we won't know for sure. All right, so that is where we stand with the COVID update. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. I'll try to address them afterwards. moving into SBA standard. So at our core, we focus on access to capital, small business contracting, and counseling opportunities. Capital. There are a couple of different categories. Debt financing loans is what most people are familiar with, and that makes sense. That's the biggest program that we have by way of access to capital. We have a small investment and grant opportunity, and then a program that people often overlook if you're not in construction. And I checked with Liz ahead of time. It sounds like the people here are not in construction or manufacturing, but this program is very relevant to those industries. So I won't spend too much time on it, but if people have questions afterward, then like I said, I'm happy to follow up with you individually. Debt financing. So we have our two flagship programs, the 7A and the 504. Under both of these programs, there are a number of different loan products. And then each lender decides on what type of 7A loan they offer to the businesses. So for those of you who are not familiar with 7A, it can be used for almost any purpose, including buying real estate, equipment, inventory, working capital, refinancing business debt, purchasing a small business. That last part, it's tricky. While possible, it's very, very difficult to use a 7A to purchase a small business. I just want to make that note. So the 504 is designed specifically for real estate, heavy machinery, or equipment. It's designed for fixed assets. The CDCs, the Certified Development Companies, are the ones who issue the 504 loan. So whereas the 7A program is done through lenders like Wells Fargo, Chase, Columbia State Bank, and the like, the 504 are only originated through the Certified Development Companies. If you'd like to review a list of SBA 7A lenders in our state, or certified development companies that can issue 504 loans, I dropped a link to the Portland District Resource Guide into the chat box. There, I believe starting page 30, but there is an index. You'll get a list of all of the approved SBA lenders in our district and approved CDCs that work on 504 loans. The third program is the microloan program. So that's loans up to $50,000. That is the max. And these are run by micro lenders. So we have 3 micro lenders in our state: NISO, OWAMI, and Mercy Corps Northwest. These organizations are also in that resource guide that I dropped into the chat box. And one way to go about it is looking at that resource guide, reaching out to these individual lenders and figuring out if they have a loan product that makes sense for your business. Another way to do it is to reach out to I'll talk about the Small Business Development Center in a little bit, but they have something called the Capital Access Team. And so with the Capital Access Team, they have a pulse on all the different funding streams in Oregon, not only SBA loan products, but also what there are at a commercial lending level, at a state level, local level. So it would be a great launch pad for somebody who's not sure what they want to do by way of funding for their business. They can assess your situation and determine, would you qualify for an SBA loan, or would it make more sense for your business to look at a commercial small business loan? And then, does a loan make sense at all for your business, where you are financially, where you are strategically? That's where I would, if I were to start a business, or if I'm running a business and I have questions about capital, I would probably start with that Capital Access Team, because like I said, they have such a breadth of knowledge around all the different funding available within the state of Oregon at a federal, state, and local level. They also have advisors there that can talk to you about, like I mentioned, strategy. Just strategically, doesn't make sense for your business to take on more debt, or would it make sense to wait and do that a little bit later? They can also work with you on applying for a loan, which for anyone who has not applied for a loan, not always the most straightforward process, but they can certainly walk you through that process and ensure that you have all the documentation that you need in order to set yourself up for success when applying for a small business loan. I mentioned that there is a small niche grant program. So SBIC is an investment company, but that they really focus on, there is one SBIC in Oregon, and they focus on growth-oriented companies, scalable companies. If anybody's interested, I'll be happy to drop their information into the chat box, but because they are particular, I don't find them to be totally relevant to a lot of small businesses. Moreover, so that's the investment piece. The grant opportunity is SBIR, STTR. That's the Small Business Innovative Research and the Small Business Technology Transfer. This is also a niche program that provides grant money to businesses that are looking to develop innovative technologies. And these funds, while over the SBIR, STTR program is overseen by the SBA, the money is coming from the participating federal agencies that have research and development money set aside specifically to award to small businesses to help propel the agency mission. That's important. They're putting out solicitations for different projects or products that they're trying to develop, and then small businesses in turn can respond to these solicitations. Because it is a niche program, it's something that I'd be happy to talk about at length with somebody who's interested, but I don't think warrants significant presentation time. All right, and I mentioned the SBA Surety Bond Guarantee Program. Because it doesn't sound like it's entirely relevant to this audience, I'll just say that this program, like SBA loans, and I have to mention that with the loans, the SBA doesn't provide funding for any of these loans. What it does is guarantee the loan product. So it's less risky for the banks to give these loans to small businesses. And likewise with the surety bond program, the SBA is guaranteeing the surety bond so that businesses can obtain first-time bonding, increase bond limits, eliminate collateral or funds control, and then lower your surety rate. If there happens to be anybody who is in construction manufacturing, feel free to reach out. I also dropped a link to our office directory. My contact information is in there. The contact information for everybody in our office is in there, and we have an open door. Everybody's always welcome to reach out to us directly if you have questions. And to wrap up the section on capital, just a summary of what lenders are looking for: 5 C's of credit: character, capacity, cash flow, collateral or guarantees, capital contribution, and condition. All of these things a small business advisor would be able to sit down with you and discuss to see if given this criteria, your business would be in a good position to apply for a small business loan. So I mentioned capital, federal contracting, and counseling. We're moving into government contracting, selling to the federal government. This is also a program that it sounds like people overlook, but it's important to note that the federal government is the biggest buyer of goods and services in the entire world. As you see here in 2019, fiscal year 2019, $2.2 billion in federal contract was awarded to firms in our district, and of that, $1 billion went directly to small businesses within the Portland district. And the top 5 federal agencies buying from the Portland district are U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the GSA, General Service Administration, Department of Veteran Affairs, Department of Interior, and Department of agriculture. For those of you not familiar with government contracting, effectively, the federal government mandated that 23% of all sales go to small businesses in the United States. So each federal agency has a quota that they need to make to ensure that their spending is going toward the small business community. So as a small business, you already by default have an advantage, and you would need to register. So if, and that's a different presentation. We have a business opportunity specialist in our office who works exclusively in government contracting, and he puts on these type of presentations all the time, but very high level. You need to get your certification. Market research is involved. Understand your buyer, understand what federal agencies are looking for, and there are all sorts of market research strategies to do that. And then actually applying for the contract, government contract is another process. GCAP, the Government Contracting Assistance Program, is a nonprofit where you can meet with an advisor for free, and kind of like the Capital Access Team, except for government contracting, the beauty in that organization is that it can speak to not only government contracting at a federal level, they can speak to government contracting at a state and local level as well. And they can, depending on where you are, assess, are you ready for government contracting? Here are the things that you need to consider. And they can also help you do some market research, figure out who's buying the product or service that you're offering. So I would say that GCAP is an invaluable resource for people who are looking to get started with government contract, or maybe you've already started and just getting additional information on government contracting. So I mentioned that as a small business, you already have an advantage. You still need to register in order to bid for or for the government, federal government contracts. But then there are also set aside programs that are administered through the SBA, and that's the Women-Owned Small Business, Small Disadvantaged Businesses, Hub Zone Businesses, and then Service-Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Businesses. So in addition to that 23%, if you're a small business and you're a women-owned small business, then you have an advantage because these agencies also have these particular quotas that they need to meet as negotiated by the SBA during their procurement efforts. Like I said, if there are more questions on this particular point, I haven't checked the chat, but there are plenty of presentations that I can direct you to, or we can try to address these questions specifically after the presentation. And then finally, we covered capital counseling and, capital government contracting, and this final point is counseling. So access to business advisors. I think I saw a note earlier, somebody asked, in what ways can the SBA get involved with the community? And it's really through these resources. So if you've picked up on it, the SBA is more of a marketing arm for all the resources that we help fund in full or in part. So for example, SCORE, Small Business Development Center, Women's Business Center, the VBOCs, microlenders, all of these programs are funded in part or in full by the Small Business Administration. And these organizations, these business advisors, are the ones that are directly working with people like yourselves and the small business community. For those of you who are not familiar with SCORE, SCORE is a volunteer nonprofit organization. They have business advisors from all sorts of industries that can meet with you to either discuss your idea if you're thinking about starting a business. Surprisingly, I mentioned that most people here are probably in that recovery stage, but we've also seen a pretty significant uptick in small business starts in our region, which makes sense. If people are laid off, trying to think of what's next. It's just an interesting point that we came across. There is a pretty significant uptick in small business starts. And for those people looking to explore a new business idea or maybe another business idea, these organizations would be gold. The SCORE mentors can meet with you to discuss a business idea. If you're already running a business, if you want to think about a new strategy for your business, think about what's next for your business amid everything that's happening with COVID, they can also meet with you to discuss those ideas. Along the same line, you have advisors at the small business development centers, advisors that will meet with you for free to discuss, similar to what I already described, business ideas, growth strategies. I mentioned the capital access team. The capital access team is housed in the Small Business Development Center network here in Oregon. They offer the small business advising, but they also have a number of programs. So for example, if you are sitting on your grandma's famous salsa recipe and you want to get your recipe to market, they have a program called Recipe to Market, where they introduce you to all the industry players in Oregon and connect you to that food industry here and help you understand what type of cost would be associated with running that type of business, amongst the various of other programming that's available through the Small Business Development Center. Women's Business Center, they also have the advisors that, like their name advertises, they are trying to target women entrepreneurs, aspiring women entrepreneurs, but they won't turn anybody away. They have something right now I think is particularly valuable. They call them Funding Fridays. It's a virtual event where they talk about the different funding grant opportunities, loan programs that are delivered at a state or city level, and a number of other things. So I think that that's a valuable, in addition to everything, of course, everything else that they're offering, a valuable platform just to keep a pulse on what's going on with the funding options in our state. Veteran business outreach centers, they advertise, try to work with veteran aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs and provide them with veteran-specific resources. And we talked about the microlenders. Microlenders like MISO, Mercy Corps actually hosts the Women Business Center. So you have the microlenders at Mercy Corps, and then you have the Women's Business Center for small business counseling. It's important to note that you see a lot of similarities amongst these organizations, SCORE, SBDC, WBC, the Women's Business Center. And because they're either free or low cost, I would certainly encourage that people, and I know that not everybody has the time to invest in going around calling, talking to advisors to figure out who the best fit is for your business. But I think that will pay dividends if you can identify an advisor that resonates with your idea, that has experience in your industry, and that can help move your business in an upward trajectory. So that's where we stand with the counseling arm of the Small Business Administration. The website is another fantastic resource. Everything that I talk about you can find on SBA.gov. They have a number of different articles. They have a learning center with half-hour video tutorials, both for that business in that startup or business looking to grow. Lender matches on there. So in addition to the resource guide that I dropped into the chat box, you can go onto the website and go into the lending section, and from there you'll be directed to lender match. And in lender match, you're effectively inputting some of your information, what you're looking for in small business capital, and that information is then populated to all the participating SBA lenders, and they will reach out to you if they think that they have a loan product that would make sense for your business. This is a relatively new program, so the success has been hit and miss. just know that it is an option. They are working to optimize the program, but it's there, and at the very least you can see if there are lenders that are readily there to work with you on the on your small business loan. If not, like you said, you have options. You have that small business resource guide that I dropped into the menu where you can reach out to these lenders specifically to see if it would make sense, if they have any loans that would make sense for your business, or go to the Small Business Development Capital Access team to assess all of your options. Let's see. And then finally, our contact information. I also dropped this into your into the chat box. I dropped the link to our office directory with my contact information, our office contact information for all the staff in our office, and then also a link to subscribe to the Portland newsletter. We put this out every week, and this is a great way to just kind of keep abreast on what's going on at the SBA from the source, rather than from all the millions of articles that are being published by different news outlets. This way you'll have firsthand information on what's going on with both EIDL and PPP, but then other SBA programs that we're anticipating with this new administration. With that, that concludes my presentation. I'll open up the chat. I don't see if, oh, yeah.
Anna, thank you. We'll just kind of work through and we'll read out the questions, and if the person who put the question has more to add, we'll let them chime in. But Anastasia asked whether PPP loan forgiveness will be excluded from gross income, and are expenses attributable to obtaining loan forgiveness deductible?
So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, Anastasia, if you want to jump in, that's fine. The PPP loan forgiveness, will it be excluded from gross income? And are the expenses attributed?
Yeah, so that first question, I'll say honestly, I'm not entirely sure. We might have more guidance around that point with this new stimulus bill. So whatever is currently out there, that is subject to change with this new stimulus bill. So Anastasia, if you want to follow up with me once the bill is changed, we'll probably have more insight into how that's going to affect your taxes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, in terms of the work that's that a business undertakes to seek loan forgiveness, will that be deductible as an expense? Or has that been settled? I think it's still kind of a question out there.
Yeah, do you mean the time that you spend trying to apply for loan forgiveness?
Like if you got to hire the CPA to help you figure it out, or the attorney to help you figure out, can you qualify for forgiveness? Yeah, those expenses.
Yes, yeah. So that, again, I think that's gonna be more illuminated once the new stimulus package comes out with more conclusive guidance. As you know, that guidance is always changing. So we can certainly, once that's out, review that. And if you have outstanding questions, like I said, you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly, and we can try to help settle. The problem with the guidance, I want to note, is that so many people called our office asking for our interpretation of the guidance. And unfortunately, that's all it is. It's an interpretation. We don't have a Cliff Notes version of what was intended by all the guidance that was rolling out. With time, it becomes more and more clear. But unfortunately, I just want to make that disclaimer that we'll do our best to review the guidance that they set forth. But at the end of the day, it is our interpretation of it.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, and Dan wants to know whether any of the new programs that are coming out will be grants.
So the PPP program could potentially, as you heard, be a grant in that you have an opportunity to apply for forgiveness. The expenses that would qualify for forgiveness. It looks like they're going to be adding more, but as it stands now, the eligible loan forgiveness expenses include payroll and certain related expenses, utilities, rent or lease payments, and then mortgage interest payments. And you have to spend at least 60% of the loan amount on payroll and the rest on eligible loan expenses. And like I said, it sounds like they're going to be expanding on what qualifies as an eligible PPP loan expense. So in a roundabout way, that could be seen as a grant opportunity, in that you have enough, if you're using the money correctly, it's going to be, you don't need to pay it back. I mentioned the EIDL program. It looks like they want to reinstate the grant option in that program. So if you apply for the EIDL loan and you check the box that you want to be considered for the EIDL grant, then you have an opportunity up to $10,000. They cap it at $10,000, and it's based on employee count. So if you have 3 employees, the most you can get is $3,000 in grant funding that you won't have to pay back. And like I said, if you decide that you don't want the EIDL loan, you have every right to deny that, refuse that loan, and that's fine. But that has not passed yet. I want to state that stimulus bill, as you all know, has not passed yet. And until it does, we won't know with 100% certainty. These are things that they've outlined as wanting to add to that stimulus package, but we'll have more clarity on what exactly is in the package once it's passed.
And then Neil and Heather would like to know where the link to the grant application is, or where they will be able to find it.
Sure. So the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan program, that is on the SBA.gov website. And let me see, I'm gonna just drop the link in here. So I'll remember to drop the link, but actually, why don't I just walk everybody through this?
And
so if you go into
the chamber, the newsletters that are coming out from chambers and the business recovery centers, they are contacting everybody whenever grant applications come out as well. But go ahead.
That's great. Yeah. So if you go into SBA.gov, let me. You'll see here that COVID is front and center. You can click here, click on the yellow banner up top.
I think
this is a little, so
your screen is not sharing. Can you go off screen share and then come back on for?
Oh, let me see. It says that I'm sharing my screen.
We're seeing your slide deck.
Okay. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So once I'll go back to the main page. You'll go into SBA.gov. You'll have this banner here or this banner up top, this yellow banner. You can click on either one. And then going down to coronavirus funding options, clicking on this hyperlink, click here to learn more about available SBA loan and debt relief options. That's another thing I forgot to mention is if you have a current SBA loan, 7A 504 or a microloan, you were part of the SBA debt relief program. Basically 6 months of your payments were made by the SBA. That's something else that's being considered in this new stimulus bill. They're thinking about continuing that program, but I don't know, is it going to be another 6 months? Is it going to be another 3 months that they're going to cover? Is it going to be there and all for certain? Until they pass it, we don't know for certain, but that is something that's up for consideration. So anyway, we're here in the coronavirus relief options, EIDL. You click here, and then boom, COVID-19 economic injury disaster loans apply here. Click. And the application, like I mentioned, is relatively streamlined. It goes quick. A lot of people were surprised at how quickly it is to apply for an EIDL grant. And as you work through these questions, toward the end, it asks you, do you want to be considered for an EIDL grant? And it has a little check box, and you have to click that checkbox in order to be considered. And the way that it worked in the first round for anyone that secured that EIDL grant is they would drop the grant money into your bank account because you input your bank checking and routing information. They'll drop that grant into your account without notice. So at the onset, we had a lot of calls of people wondering, what is this money? Can I actually use it? Yes. I don't know if that's how they're going to go about it the second time, or if it's going to be available. I want to stress that until that bill is passed, we don't know with certainty, but it is up for consideration. But how they're going to go about with the grant disbursement on the EIDL program this second go around, if it's there. Does that answer your question?
I think that's helpful. Thank you. And if Heather or Neil want to chime in, go right ahead. We have one more question. I'm not sure if this is one you're going to be able to answer, but Stephanie's asking, what is the expectation that receiving a loan when businesses that are barely staying afloat will be in a position to pay these loans back in any future with indefinite restrictions that Governor Brown has implemented for the state of Oregon?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. It's hard to say, but there is a payment deferment. So with the EIDL, I think it's a year until you have to start repaying the EIDL loan back. And then PPP, you have 10 months to apply for forgiveness. And then if you don't qualify for full forgiveness, then you would have to start paying back whatever amount that you don't qualify to be forgiven. So there is, from our perspective, there is some time for businesses to kind of find their bearings and then get the capital that they need to start repaying these loans. They're relatively low interest rate. The PPP is 1%. The EIDL is 3.75%. So while it definitely doesn't totally rectify the issue, it at least leaves businesses with some breathing room to figure it out. But that's the extent of what I can say to that question.
And Anna, do you have any stories that you've heard recently of success stories or folks who have come in and have had a positive experience with the process?
Yeah, we have a number of businesses that had great success with the program. We actually publish these success stories in our newsletter all the time. There isn't one that comes to mind right off the bat, but chiropractors, I've worked with a number of businesses that reached out directly within that particular realm. Gosh, now I'm on the spot. Of course, they would all fleet my memory, but there have definitely been businesses who have got really good success with both the PPP and the EIDL program.
I applied for the EIDL program when COVID first happened, and it was like very seamless and very successful. So yeah, I agree with you.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. It wasn't, so you probably applied after like the third iteration of the program, because when they first released it, it was a very difficult process for a lot of people. But fortunately, within a couple of weeks, they created that streamlined application. And like you said, it was pretty straightforward for businesses to apply. So I think that's a huge win for the Office of Disaster Assistance. I do want to note that it's a point of frustration internally as well, that there is very little communication between Office of Disaster Assistance, the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance, and the district office. So we have people calling in all the time asking, what's going on with my application? Why hasn't it been processed? And all we can say is that there's a huge influx of applications. They're doing their best to process, but that's it. We have no insight onto where, we can't look up an individual application as much as I wish we could, and I wish we could provide more information, but that program is administered through the Office of Disaster Assistance, and any type of insight would have to come directly from that office. They have 1-800 numbers, they have an email address. As you can imagine, both those outlets are pretty backed up.
Great, thank you, Anna. And does anybody else have any questions? We have Anna right here from SBA. And if not, just want to let you know, and thank you, Anna, for coming in today. The Clackamas County is expecting to open up a grant application process likely tomorrow on the 19th that will run from the 19th to the 26th. There will be more information going out this afternoon once they have confirmed the program, and this is the last round of funding, the governor's announcement of the $55 million that was coming forward. For those of you who may have applied just in this round 3 just a couple of weeks ago, your application will stay in that process as we understand it, but do read through the qualifications when you get notice this afternoon about the grant program. And Anna, do you have any closing comments? Anything that you want people to know before we let you go today?
I definitely want to take the opportunity to say happy holidays to everybody on this call, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, which clearly is over now. Yesterday was the last day, but for Christmas and New Year's, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. Know that we are here. You have our contact information. To the extent possible, we will try to help you. And I know that everybody working from Liz, the chamber, to the SBDCs, everybody has the business's best interests at heart. So if there's anything that we can do to help, we will try to help.
Great. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. Stay healthy for everyone. If any of you want to stay on and chat for the next 10 minutes, we'll leave this open for just open networking, since we did not have a final networking today. But Anna, thank you so much, and thank you for letting us record this and share this with our membership.
Of course.